just saying we're talking about dads.
I am your
Dads,
father.
daddies, fathers, fatherhood. I mean, you all got dads,
Daddy
right?
didn't love me. Oh, that's
That
a great
makes so
line.
much sense.
I love Austin Powers.
Thank you.
Isn't there a whole song
Daddy
about
played
it?
bass.
Mama played fiddle.
Yes, there is a whole
Heard
song
that
about
song.
it.
Because your
Mama's got a squeeze dog. Daddy don't sleep at night. Well, as you can tell, we're talking about dads today. So welcome back, crowd, to Five's a Crowd. Here we've got the five of us. We got Zach, we got Tony, we got Austin, we got Chris, we got Cam.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us again. Today we're going to talk about, honestly, this is a topic that could potentially make me cry.
So I was going to say, I think we're continuing this from last week because we ended last week about fatherhood pretty much. And
We did. We threw in some tidbits.
yes,
But
so
I'm really interested to hear from you guys. I want to know how you perceived fatherhood, like as a child, as a son of a father being raised, like how you perceived it would be when you were in that position, and then kind of go from there.
That's kind of a stepping stone too, is as your kid thinking about it to now when your actual realization of it is there. It's a whole different ballgame.
I'll actually here. I'll start it off because this made me. I just thought of this. One of the things that I think is wildest about looking at my dad when I was a kid versus becoming one is the fact that like you look at your parents and you think they have everything together. You think they've figured it out. They're like near the end stages of their life where they're just going to chill the rest of their life. You know what I mean? And all they're doing is just wasting time raising you. But like they have a house, they have multiple cars, they have good jobs. Like you think they just know what's up. And so I always perceived that once I became a dad, I would be like that. Now that I'm a
have your
dad,
crap together, just
yeah. And now that I'm a dad, I'm like, did they know anything when they were raising me? Like I know nothing. You know what I mean?
Were you
Yeah.
the youngest?
I was the youngest.
That's
me too.
I was going to say my dad growing up collectively, he's like, we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
You were our guinea pig. And that's,
Well, you're the oldest.
yeah, I am the oldest.
That's exactly what my dad said to my brother, who's the oldest too. He was just like, "Yeah, you kind of are a guinea pig. I'm sorry."
Yeah,
We
but
learn on the go.
in the opposite effect, though, I feel like being a father, yeah, the first child is definitely your guinea pig, but it's also they also get the most attention because you can give them your sole attention. When you have two kids, then it's like, okay, now it's time to divide and conquer and try and figure out who needs what when.
Without trying to make the first one feel neglected now because they were so used to this. Now they're getting this.
Yeah.
Even
It's hard.
Even so, like I think I only have one kid, but with the first kid, you want to be the perfect parent for that first kid and make sure they're teaching him every lesson you can. And I'm starting to realize now that he's older, there's not a perfect parent.
Well, and that's the thing. You bring up a good point. Like I feel like a lot of the lessons I learned from my dad weren't always intentional.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he didn't think to himself, "Oh, lesson time. Let's do this."
Yeah.
It literally would be an action that he took in a moment, and I saw that. And then I was like, "Okay, this is how it's done in this situation."
I think, the main thing is leading through example is the biggest thing that a kid picks up on.
Exactly. Yeah.
I agree on that.
It's not the do as I say, it's do as I do.
Yeah. And I love my dad, but I've learned a lot of how to act and a lot of how not to act from the way. And I mean, he's not perfect, but when you're young, you're thinking your dad should be, this perfect model person of exactly how you should be. I'm far from that right now, way too far away from it, but I'm trying. But my dad ruled like iron fist, ruled by fear. And I'm trying my hardest to stay away from that and teach through example and teach through consequences that are not by my hand, but natural consequences with things. So
No, totally.
this is deep. We can get deep in
Dude,
this
yeah,
one.
dude. Like I don't know about you guys, but I've always, it's funny because growing up, me and my dad are very much alike. Like we are very similar people, the way we act, the way we talk, like our interests and stuff are very aligned. So growing up, we would butt heads quite often.
Yeah.
You know, like we would get into like big arguments, especially when I was a teenager and I was like the last one in the house. We would get into some pretty heated arguments. One time I came home and he posted this piece of paper on every door in the house and all the way down the hallway down the stairs and down the hallway to my room that said how much I cost him each month living there. And it basically
Oh my God, that's genius.
it was basically to the tune of pay rent or get out. Granted, I was like 20, I think I was like 23 or 24. So it was after my mission. I was still there. I was just kind of coasting a little bit. It was so funny, but so mean at the same time.
That is genius. I love that. Love that.
Itemized, like completely itemized.
Really? It was like a
dude.
spreadsheet,
It was
like
like
an Excel
food,
spreadsheet?
TV, internet,
Hot water.
room space, hot water, temperature, like all that stuff.
Well, you're gone for 2 years and pretty much just focused on one thing to where you come home. It takes I'd imagine it'd take a long time to adjust.
It is, and I didn't necessarily have a solid plan for when I got home. So
Yeah.
I was like, what am I gonna do?
I don't know, boo-boo.
I don't know.
But yeah, so I was always independent, very independent kid, very independent teenager, and my dad, like he led through example because he's a very independent person as well. Like likes to grab things by the horn and just get it done. And so as a kid, I was that way too, and that's why we would butt heads, is because I was very independent, wanted to do things on my own, wanted to figure it out on my own on
Do
certain
it your
things.
own way, not the way he told you to do
Not the
it.
way that he wanted it done. And he's an engineer. Nobody, what 10-year-old can do an engineer's job?
No, we can do that.
Let's say my dad is an engineer, and yeah, we would butt heads a lot because I am an extremely independent person, and to the point where like I'll prove you wrong.
Yeah.
Like, and it's bit me in the butt a few times, but most of the time, like I am so driven myself that I'll do it myself and I'll learn the hard way.
And sometimes you learn a lot better by doing it that way. Like they don't
yeah.
want you
Yeah.
to, and because my dad always be like, Chris, a wise man learns from the mistakes from their mistakes, but a wiser man learns from the mistakes of others.
Dude, my dad told me that same
all
thing
the time, and I was like, yeah, well, I'm just wise. I'm not the
But
wiser
see,
man.
I took that lesson to heart though. Like
I do.
when he told me that, and I know you do too. But like, this is what's interesting. So hearing you say it from how your father said it to me and how my father said it to me, like we took it in complete. Like when he said it to me, I was like, oh, that's freaking genius.
Yeah.
Well, obviously. But like it sounds like when your father used it on you, it was in a more condescending way. So
Yeah.
you're like, well, that's stupid.
Well, I didn't ever think it was stupid, but I
Yeah.
did think
You're just bugged by
you
it.
can't. Some mistakes you do have to learn for yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But subconsciously, I did take it into heart and I did start applying it. But I never let the man know. I never let him know.
Never let them know. Never let them know they were right.
You're
That's
right.
when you lose.
You were right. Yeah.
You were wrong. That's Leonidas. You were wrong.
Stupid, nasty creature.
I mean, in the same context, one of the smartest quotes I ever heard was, "Don't be afraid to be the dumbest person in the room."
Yeah.
Because then that gives you the ability to learn the most. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, that's genius. Because, like, especially being in the computer science and tech industry, it was almost as if you had to be the smartest person in the room to be taken seriously. Mm-hmm. And everyone would be super condescending if you asked a dumb, using quotes, dumb question. And really, there is no such thing as dumb, in my opinion.
No.
And that's how you
'cause-
learn.
I mean, yes and no.
Well, no.
As in, the majority aren't, but some people say some pretty stupid stuff.
Well,
There's common sense that's like,
I mean more so like when you're in a meeting on a specific subject for a product or something, and it's a very technical atmosphere.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a place where you have all achieved being there. So so there's not a way you can ask a dumb question.
Which
Yeah.
goes to another thing too, is I think it was my dad. I don't know if it was my dad or not, but I did get taught, if you feel like you're the smartest one in the room, you're not growing.
Yeah.
As a human.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to be around people who push you.
What, Tony? What?
Nothing.
Did you
I don't
just
wanna
realize
say
you
it.
think you're the smartest person in the room? Huh?
No,
Huh?
not even close. Around you guys,
Whatever. You're smarter than me.
whatever.
Anybody can learn something from anybody.
Yeah.
Well, and it's pride. Like pride gets in the way, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what that is. Thinking you're the smartest person in the room, you close yourself off to getting any input
Yeah.
from anyone else, no matter how small.
See, I think that's what I like about being a father is because I'm so much smarter than my kids.
And that's why you get so mad when they prove you wrong.
Boy, let me tell you something.
Sometimes I get so mad because in my head it is common sense.
Yes.
I'm like, I'm telling you no, so just don't do it. Like, why is there the struggle here? Just don't. Or like when my kid is like freaking out, like Jude gets these temper tantrums still, and when he's going off, and it's like, dude, the answer is no, just stop. And it's like, no, just don't. Like, why are you still freaking out? I gave you the answer. Now just stop. Like, in my head, it's just perfect. It's just easy.
The door's shut. Like, why is it not? Why is the sound still coming through?
Right. And it's just, I don't know. I wish I had better examples because, it drives me nuts when it's like,
I think you just described the frustration of all dads.
right? But it's like, it goes back to that. It's like, okay, they're still a child. Like, especially with my oldest, Brinley, she just turned 10 not too long ago. And it's like, she's my oldest and she's 10 and 10 is an age where you start to really get things. But at the same time, 10 is still very, very young. And especially when I relate it to me, my parents divorced when I was 10 and a lot happened when I was 10 actually. And it's like, that was so long ago. And I remember being so young when it all happened, but now flipping it and looking at Brinley as a 10-year-old, I'm like, you're so old. You should just get this. And there's so many times in teaching moments and different things that we have to, Jenny and I both, we have to like stop and take that step back. And it's like, hey, she is the oldest of our children, but she is still young. So we got to slow it down. She's still a child. And oh yeah, it's tough sometimes.
It is. Like, I know exactly what you mean. You probably have similar stuff with your oldest child. Like, you feel like they should get things or they should be better at certain things because of how old they are.
There's times me and Kara have gotten after Katie, and both of us have to remind each other, like, hey, she's still only 10. Like, we need to remember that she's still a child and, to give her a break. So
I do that with Alden. He's only 4. I'm like, boy, you should wait. Hold on. You know what I mean? Like, for real.
But in a way, he's your oldest child.
Yeah.
Like, he's your only, but he's your oldest still.
granted, that kid to me felt like he's 8 years old.
Oh, for real.
He's
he
like
does
Tom.
not,
He
Jude.
leaps and
he does
bounds.
not seem he's 4.
got an old soul. But yeah. And Alden, same thing how you're saying with the temper, like them yelling and getting upset. I'll notice my voice raising. I'm like, I'm just teaching this kid that I'm being a hypocrite, telling him not to do it, and I'm doing it right back at him. So then I
You're
have
like,
to,
no yelling. And
I
you're
have
like,
to take, I'll have to take a step back, and I'll be like, okay, because that's my immediate natural reaction because that's how it was approached to me growing up, and so getting to the other side of that and actually thinking outside of the situation has been a big thing that's kind of really helped me. Is like, okay, step outside of the situation and handle this calmly. Because when my dad was a spanker, right? He would spank. But I never thought I was getting spanked because of what I did. I thought I was getting spanked because dad was mad at me. And I don't think that's the right way to teach a kid anything.
interesting.
So
That is interesting because I too was spanked as a child, but there was always intention. Like it was like pretty much I mean, there's a handful that I'm like, man, I don't remember what happened, but I remember I took a beating.
No, for real.
And it's but for the majority of those, a lot of them were at that time deserved. Like it was just ridiculous. I haven't gotten to that stage in fatherhood to where, I mean, my kids are old enough to even be like, for me to be thinking, oh, you're old enough. Why don't you get that? Or, cause my oldest is only 2. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious to see how I will handle those situations where, you know, it gets out of hand and I need to like reevaluate, reassess, take a step back, take a breather, and then kind of go back in.
I know one thing for me is you have to learn to humble yourself as a parent. There's been times, and I hate to admit it, it's mostly been on Jude. And I don't know if it's because he's the boy or what, but like I've gotten mad at him to the point where I've spanked his butt pretty good. And maybe, I don't know, long enough later that I've given it time for the punishment to sink in. But the whole time I am sick to my stomach. Yeah. And I end up going in, giving him the biggest hug and telling him, I'm like, Jude, I love you so much. I'm sorry I laid my hands on you like that, but you did this wrong. And, you know, I don't make it to where it's okay that he did something wrong, but I apologize for me overreacting. And I'm hoping, I mean, it's hard right now because he's definitely not getting it yet, but I'm hoping as he gets older, he'll see, okay, dad can recognize when he overreacts and he apologizes for it. So I need to start doing the same.
Yeah.
Sometimes it needs to marinate.
Yeah.
So it won't happen when you want it to. But
Right.
Exactly.
And behind the spankings and me getting behind the idea of intention is, I don't know about you, Chris, but a lot like Tony, my dad would, you know, spank us, send us to our room, and we'd be in there for maybe like a half hour to kind of think things through. Then he would come in, and he wouldn't necessarily apologize because that was the punishment for our actions. But he would say, I want you to know I still love you. And he would explain why we got it. And then, you know, we'd hug it out and then go do whatever. It was like, then it was done. And so I'm curious if that's similar in your situation, since you took it so personally.
No.
No.
See, in that, I feel like if that's something I know it's so controversial, but I think that it does stick to a kid if that's the way. I mean, yeah, you have to do it with a purpose, and yeah, it has to be under a controlled environment, in my opinion. But my dad would just get mad and lash out. And actually, you know what? I had mixed, because there was that one, and those are the ones that I actually was like, yeah, I deserve that. But the ones where he was mad about something, it was just like, what the heck is his problem? You know what I mean? So I think that the way your dad handled it is actually like the gold standard for how something like that should be done. Because yeah, there's the bite, but then there's got to be the love and intent afterwards, saying, okay, it was because of this action that the consequence was this. You knew well that this was going to be a consequence of an action like that. My dad, he would do that sometimes, and those are the lessons that did stick. But when he did it, he got a little hot-headed sometimes, you know? And so, I don't know. It's still, I love my dad. I do. And he wasn't perfect. And I had so much resentment before because of it. But now that I understand that, hey, this guy's learning too. He's a human being like we all are. But
it's like you were telling me the other day, like when that classic, there's like a lot of like dad lines, you know what I mean? Like everyone's heard them, everyone's dad says them, but one of the biggest ones we were talking about is, this hurts me more than you.
Oh, I hate it.
And as a kid, you're just mad. You're like, you didn't just get hit in the freaking butt with a belt,
really?
dude. What are you talking about? Like, whatever. And now as a dad, even giving out the dumbest punishment sucks. Like even just being like, you don't get to watch TV the rest of the day. You're like, oh, well, gosh, I'm such an a-hole.
So funny story though with that is one time. So we were at my grandparents' house, and I was told not to go in the corral where my grandpa had oxen, but I was told not to go in the corral where all the manure was. And I had new shoes on. Uh-oh. And I went in the corral, and he's like, okay, when you get home, you're getting so many spankings. I was like, oh no. So the rest of the day, I was just absolute dread about what was going to happen when I get home. Well, we get home, and I was like, okay, is it time for my spankings? He's like, what? Oh, yeah, yep, it's time for your spankings. That's how I told on myself. I told on myself.
Dude,
because of it. Definitely don't have an engineer's brain for sure.
Dude, it's I get it though. Like I think that's one of the other hard parts about being a dad, especially like growing up the times that I would get spanked or threatened with the belt. I think I swear I got hit with the belt like once on the butt. My dad and mom say he never actually hit me with the belt. He was just real good at taking it. He had a massive belt buckle and he would undo it in 2 seconds. It's just like that thing was in the air and I was like, I'm sorry, forgive me.
Like,
Yeah,
Like I was immediately groveling. I'm
like
like,
Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah, dude, it's straight up.
and every single belt loop, it would
Made
hit
a sound, yep.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like same as you guys. Like some of them, I'm like, I have no idea. I don't remember at all what I did. But other ones, I'm like, yeah, I deserved that. I think it's the same for all of us. But I remember a lot of times, like my dad would come home from work. And my mom would be mad at me for something I did, and she'd give you that wait till your father gets home.
Oh, I hated
You're
that.
like, oh balls, I screwed up.
Yeah, I hated
And
that
he'd
line.
get home and like I felt bad. I feel bad for him now looking back because the dude would just get side blasted, hit or whatever by mom coming up and being like, your son, listen to what your son did. This, and this. And dad's like, I just come from work, but Cameron. And you're like,
Well, not to
poor
mention too,
guy.
he's made out to now be the bad guy.
The enforcer.
Yeah.
The enforcer, yeah. So I actually had a talk with Lisa about that. She didn't actually do that, saying wait till your dad gets home. But I said if you need me to talk to him if he's acting out, because I don't know, maybe it's just a male voice or whatever it is. He actually listens to what I'm saying. A little more than her sometimes. And so I'll be like, I don't want to be the guy who my son dreads me coming home because he did something wrong. I said, so if there is something there during the day, call me, have me talk to him, and then we can figure it out then. But I don't want you to be like, wait till your dad gets home. I just don't like that. I don't like that philosophy.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm supposed to be, I don't know.
You just don't want to feel like the bad guy all the time.
No.
Like you don't want your kid to cower to you when you come home. And I mean, I never got to that point with my dad, except for the days that I knew I did something bad. So when he would come home, I knew I was gonna.
But at the same time,
trouble.
I want him to have that respect for Lisa as much as he does for me, and not respect her because I'm gonna get upset about it, or act good for her because Dad's gonna get mad and I'm gonna get punished for it. I want him to have. It's just, dude, it's so technical. There's so much.
There's no right answer.
When I was growing up, I think I got spanked once, and it still sticks with me today, but
It worked.
it worked. But see, I had the psychological punishments, and it was mostly from my mom, and it was the ones where it's like, oh, what would she say?
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Yes. I was like, oh my gosh, I disappointed my mom. Like I just, and now, I don't
that
know.
was bollocks.
But I mean,
Rude.
really, like I look back and I mean, I was like any kid. I got into trouble here and there, but like the one time I got spanked, it's because I didn't come home from a friend's house when I was told to. And other than that, the one other time I remember like severely getting in trouble, and it wasn't even that bad of a punishment. My parents just laid a basketball court, and the neighbor girls dared me to take my shoes off and run across the cement. Oh. And so I did it.
Dude, I'd spank you.
Oh my gosh, get over here. Get over my knee. I'm spanking you now. I can't believe
Do you know
did
how long
that.
it takes to lay cement?
Well, and that's just so the punishment was I had to go to my room and I had to stay there until the guy who did it could come back over and smooth everything back out. And then my mom came up, she gave me a talk. I can't even remember the talk, and then that was it. And it's like those are the two childhood punishments I remember. And I'm just like again, not to like put myself on this high horse, but it's like I really never got into trouble. I didn't drink, I didn't do anything. I stayed out late a few times, but it's like all in all, I didn't get into a whole lot of trouble until I met you guys and we trespassed at the Indian schools.
He immediately pointed to me like I'm the instigator.
You threw us under the bus.
Dang.
No, but
Austin always resists, remember, to see if we're all serious about it. And then he's like, okay, let's go.
but no,
To
like
be fair,
I've asked my
We
parents.
were all under the bus at that point.
It's
But
true.
Yeah.
I've straight up asked my mom before though. I'm like, what did you do that like? Because even my sister too, like she had a few things here and there, but again, she never got into any serious trouble. And it's like our parents never had to pick us up from a party for underage drinking or bail us out of jail or anything like that. Like it was never anything major. And my mom didn't have like a straight answer for me. And she's like, you were just good kids. And so I think as a father now, I'm like, that's where I'm at, is like, I just want my kids to be able to come to me and be open about whatever it is they do. If they happen to underage drink or do something and like they drink at a party and now they can't drive, I just want them to have the responsibility and the guts to call me and say, I can't drive, I drink. And then me on the flip side as a parent to be able to find that happy medium where they know they're in trouble, they will be punished for it, but not in a way to where now they want to keep secrets from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like where my kids are at, especially Brinley being 10, it's like she's just a couple years away from being a teenager. It's like I feel like I need to find that happy medium now before it's too late. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, totally. I feel the same. Like me, my brother and sister, we were all pretty mellow kids. I honestly
were a mellow kid?
I honestly was probably the craziest out of the three of us.
I don't know, but the stories I've heard,
Well,
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well, here's the funny
it's
thing.
amazing
like,
your mom has hair.
No, for real. But that's the funny thing is like I was same as Tony. Like I didn't drink. I didn't do drugs. I wasn't into any of that stuff. Like
Just mischievous.
I was just super mischievous, like
Yeah.
shooting water balloons at roller hockey players and cop cars and just toilet papering people's houses, like doing all the dumb stuff, jumping my car over railroad tracks at 65 miles an hour, crazy stuff. But same thing though, I never had a curfew, and the only time like my mom would really worry is if it was really late, she would call me just to make sure I wasn't dead.
See, that was my mom. She would just say, call me at midnight, let me know where you're at and who you're with. And
I just want to know you're not in a ditch somewhere.
Right?
It was always a ditch. But like, and I've noticed, I think what it is, at least what my parents did with us, is they were always good at just laying out kind of the ground rules in the sense of like growing up religious. They said, this is what we believe. This is what we practice. We expect you not to drink alcohol, not to do drugs. We expect you not to do those things. This is what will happen if you do. This is what will happen if you don't. But ultimately, they gave us the power to decide.
see, Jenny was actually just saying this last night, is that as parents, we want to focus on teaching our kids about consequences. Mm-hmm. It's like there's good and bad consequences, but every single choice you make is going to have a consequence. There is not a choice out there that does not have a consequence to follow. And if you can get it in your kids' heads, that meaning, then hopefully they can stop and say, okay, before I make this choice, what's going to be the consequence?
More so cause and effect.
Yeah, they see
exactly.
the end.
Not necessarily a consequence, but an effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
See, and like for me, kind of like what you were saying, how your parents on the religious level, see, I grew up religious to up to 10 years old, which isn't much. And then we fell away, but I hate to say it, but like I grew up staying away from that stuff because my dad did it. And so like when people say, oh, I look up to my dad, he's my hero. I love my dad to death. Don't get me wrong. But I looked up to him in a way of what not to do. And so now.
See, and I wonder if that's the exact reason that you're looking for from your mom, is that like, well, how did you raise such good kids? Well, you had a terrible example.
Yeah.
Of what not to be.
Right. And I mean, what my dad did,
And don't get me wrong, I love your dad. Like I've met him. He's a great
He's a
guy.
fun dude.
Yeah.
Been to a concert with him. That's fun.
Like I'm not trying to throw him under the bus, but I totally get the alcoholism and stuff like that, because I can mirror you in a lot of that fashion. That my mom's side of the family was all drug addicts, all alcoholics, and just, a lot of drama. A lot of drama.
You saw the effects. You saw the consequences.
So I had a real life example of cause and effect if I went down that path, and it was a natural repellent for me to go the other way.
Well, seeing somewhere as a kid, you have to have that smarts, because how many kids out there have parents like that follow in their footsteps? You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is what I saw my dad doing, so I'm going to do it too. Like, to be able to have, you know, the knowledge to make that choice. I saw what it did to my mom, and maybe it was because we were such a small family. My sister's 8 years older than me. When this all happened, she was 18 with 1 foot out the door already. So she was pretty much gone. So it was literally just me and my mom. And I think even though I was too young to fully understand what was going on, I still saw the heartache that she went through. And I think subconsciously, I was just like, I cannot put a woman through this. Yeah. And so like now as a husband and a father, there's just no way I could do that.
Yeah. I can definitely mirror that, because my mom's side of the family, there was a lot of drama where, you know, same thing. My grandpa put my grandma through a bunch of crap, and then to mirror that, not only her husband, but her own son went through and made her life a living hell.
Kind of like he mirrored his dad.
Yeah, he mirrored his dad. And so I saw, just like you, that exact scenario play out where my poor grandma was an angel and still is. And I never wanted to do that to anyone. Like, that was a great reason to not go down that path.
Right. Zach, I want to hear some stuff from you. You've been quiet.
Yeah, your dad is the only one.
I'm just listening.
Your dad's the only one I haven't met. Like, I know all their dads. I've only met a couple times, but like I know their dads decently well.
See, I've never met Chris's dad.
You've never met Chris's dad?
I think I've seen him like at events, but I've never actually met him.
My dad.
Dude, his mom's a saint.
I met your mom.
But I love my mom.
Your dad, Zach, I've
he's a cop.
Gotten to know him very well, and he is a wonderful guy.
Can I say something about consequence, like cause and effect, real quick? So with Alden, he's at a stage now to where he's picking up on things. So I'll give him, instead of saying go do this, I will say this needs to be done. If it gets done, this is what's going to happen. Everything's going to be good. You know, you're going to get to keep your toys or whatever. Go if you clean them up. I said if you don't clean up your toys, they're going to be taken away until you can prove that you deserve to have them back. And so
I like that.
So that's what I've been doing with him. And I used to just lay out what the scenarios are. Now I'm to the point where I'm like, okay, Alden, your toys need to get cleaned up. I go, you know what's going to happen whether you choose or not choose to pick them up. And he'll just think about it in his head, and you can tell his brain's winding, you know what I mean?
His little hamster running around in there.
Sometimes he'll throw a fit for a second. And I'll be like, remember what happened to your Legos? And he's all, and then he'll go clean up. So now I'm letting him realize that there are, whatever path he decides to go to, there's always going to be an effect of it.
It's about letting them have a little bit of control. Yeah. But you're controlling the control that they have.
Right now, yeah. See, and I never had any of that. It was just do this because I said so, do it now. Yeah. And I like to explain to him beyond that why he needs to and why dad has had to go through it, and I just trying to teach him to be a decent human. And
when you look at me, it doesn't pick you up very well.
Is it picking me up now? All right, sorry, that's all I wanted to say about that.
No, that's good. Great.
I like it.
Yeah, was your dad?
Tell us about Daddy Van Beekum.
Yeah.
So I don't know. My dad, he was a cop growing up all the time. I mean, so
Iron Fist.
So you were in handcuffs a lot, basically.
I picture having a dad as a cop being scary. A bad thing.
Same with the military father, like the same type of thing.
Yeah.
See, you say close. That, but I also saw the exact opposite in high school, because I remember some kids that were sons of cops, and it was like they thought they could get away with everything.
I feel like as a child of a cop, you're gonna be either walking on eggshells and the perfect little child, or a total D-bag.
Careful what you say, he might be a narc.
No, I don't know.
He's working for the Clintons.
Right? No, I mean, you guys have seen firsthand the opportunities that I've had with my dad being a cop.
Got me
I
out
mean,
of a
I
ticket.
got Cam out of a ticket. I, in all honesty, have only gotten one ticket in my entire life. I have been pulled over probably about 10 or so times.
That's it?
And I mean,
Last
but that's the thing too is I know better.
Yeah.
I get a ticket, my dad looks at me and says, "You know better." Yeah, you're right.
I
Gosh
ever
dang
just
it.
show you mugshots and be like, this guy did coke. This guy's on meth.
So actually, he never did that until. So my dad, growing up, he was actually kind of a very hard guy to live with. For the first little bit, he was on edge. He worked for Ogden City Police Department.
Ooh.
Scary.
things-
And back then,
The things that he saw and the things that happened. Oh yeah, it was bad.
I mean,
And
even
he-
now, it's still kind of the armpit of Utah, but
That's
it's
right.
like nowhere near what it was, I'm
Yeah.
imagining,
Yeah.
when he was a cop.
And
back then.
he saw a lot of things and brought a lot of work home. But he really, like, when I started getting like into my teens, he really lightened up. And in all honesty, to where I'm at today, it's all because of my dad.
Yeah.
I have my work ethic. I 100% learned from him. You know,
Now, curious,
Preach.
because we've all kind of talked about our fathers leading and like how they discipline and stuff like that. Are you? I'm assuming you learned by example. Like he showed you, not by telling you, but by showing you how to work hard, like hard work ethic.
oh yeah,
Okay.
like growing up, my dad had 2 to 3 jobs
Dude,
consistently,
same.
constantly, always working, always so he could provide, so we could have, you know, a fun childhood. In fact, this was one of our funnest Christmases. He used to work for, I don't know if you guys ever remember Lionel Toy House.
No, I don't remember.
They used to have one in the Ogden City Mall. This shows how old it is.
Oh,
He
dude.
used to work security there, so he'd get like 50% off of anything in there. Man, we had one Christmas where it just was like the whole living room was just full of toys.
the
But-
living room of the house was the Lionel Toy Factory.
Yes,
or whatever.
pretty much.
That's what it felt like. But I mean, that's why my dad did it though. Is he knew the jobs to work, he knew what to work, so he could provide for his kids at the time what they needed. And-
Now curious, and I'm just gonna start questioning everyone because I'm so fascinated. Did you, with him working 3 jobs, did you ever feel like you didn't get enough time with him? Because I feel like that's a lot of jobs and a lot to juggle, and not a lot of time able to spend with your family.
No, because, and I'll explain why. He, and I don't know how my brothers felt, but for myself, so my dad, when I was, how old was I? 7, 8? When I started becoming, you know, really more knowledgeable about things, he actually worked for security for a movie theater. And every weekend I went with him to work. And so I'd see 2 movies every weekend,
Oh, dang.
and I'd get him for free.
So is that why
That's
you're a
why.
movie buff?
That's what started
That's exactly
it. Yes.
why.
That's
Now-
what started it.
What he doesn't know is his dad took him just as like a preemptive body shield, you know, pick you up.
Throw the kid at him and see what happens.
You can't shoot me.
Scramble.
I'm 10, you can't shoot me.
I mean, I always loved movies before that. I mean, you could always catch me in my room just watching a movie, but that's what like kind of started it.
Glad he said movie.
What was this?
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
Continue.
But anyways, no, that's how I got to spend my time with my dad. And it was funny. There was some movies where I'm like, hey, Dad, I want to go see this one. Like one was basketball. And he'd be
love
like,
that
all right.
movie.
My dad didn't care back then. I mean, it's not like now with my kids. Like they want to watch rated R movie. And I'm like, no, you can wait till you're older. Man, I'm 9 years old. And I'm like, I want to go see basketball. My dad's like, all right. I go see it again because I think it's hilarious. By the 3rd time, my dad's like, all right, I got to see what this movie's about.
No.
Next thing you know, he walks in and he watches a part of it. And anyways, I get out of the movie and he goes, you're not seeing that again. And I'm like, oh, man.
It's one of those moments where he's like, ugh, I effed up.
And he's like, no, you're not seeing that
To
one
be
again.
fair, though, the old R is the new PG-13.
That's
For real.
not far
true.
off.
You know what I mean?
It's true.
You know, I'm the same way. I remember both my parents worked growing up. And so my mom, this was when Smith's had a video store inside of it. And so she was always bringing me home movies and stuff. And I grew up on R-rated movies, and now I think as a father now, I'm the same way. I'm like, yeah, my kids aren't watching that. And mine weren't like terrible. Like I grew up on like all the old Van Damme movies, Kickboxer, Bloodsport.
Good.
Like they're violent, but
you
I just
grew up on horror movies.
well,
That-
that started when I was 10. This
okay.
was
All right.
before that.
So Brent's 10. Can she start watching them?
So,
No.
You know what's funny is I've noticed this just from talking.
She doesn't want to.
Talking to a lot of different people is like you tend to be slightly opposite of what your parents were. So when your parents are like too lax, most children crave more structure. And they try to go the opposite way and say, well, I shouldn't be watching this stuff. Or like sometimes Kaylee will come in and we'll be watching like a Netflix show that's MA. And she'll like look at it and she'll be like, I can't be in here. This isn't for kids.
Alden does
I'm
that
just
same
like-
thing.
Then go.
You're like, oh, now I feel guilty.
I know, right? And then you're like, oh man, why are you
shame.
calling me out?
Well, I think that's just the natural flow of parenthood,
So-
right? Because growing up, you, especially when you become a father or a mother, you want to be a better version of your parents. And I think that's the direct cause of that is that, okay, my parents were super strict growing up, so I'm not going to be as
So I'm
strict.
going to give my kids everything.
And then
let
your
them do whatever
kids
they
are going
want.
to crave structure. And then vice versa.
And then they're going to be super structured, and their kids are going to be like, give us freedom.
yeah, exactly.
See, I
so
feel
it's
like
kind
I'm
of like a winding river.
definitely I'm more structured than my parents were growing up, for sure.
yeah, for sure.
I don't know. We're so nitpicky on how clean the house has to be and different things like that. Like,
That's a weird one because as a kid, I was so messy. Like, I did not care, whatever. It wasn't until my mission that, you
that
know.
you had to take care of yourself.
Exactly. So it's like me and this other dude, and this other dude's not doing any cleaning, and I'm like, this is disgusting. So I ended up cleaning all the time because I hated it. And I
Well,
was
it
like,
didn't
gosh,
help that you're
I get
also
it.
in Argentina with dirt floors.
Oh, that's true, dude.
Like, I don't know how you even begin to
I
clean
gotta tell
that.
you guys about the great cockroach freaking
Debacle.
war that I had. Oh, it was ridiculous.
Oof.
But anyways, that's a story for another time. To kind of answer your earlier question, Austin, because my dad also worked like 2 to 3 jobs a lot of the time, and a lot of it was to give us like these massive Christmases. One of my best childhood memories is every Christmas was like this, just like whoa, and I come to find out now, like he was working 2 to 3 jobs overtime, and in some situations went into a little bit of debt, like on Christmas, and then would make it up, you know. But most of the time, I was fine with it. But I do have this like distinct memory of like a week, like I think it was like a week, because you know, kids, your concept of time, a week is like 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it was this week I didn't see my dad that much, and it made me sad. Like I was real sad, even though like, you know, every once in a while I'd act out and he'd get mad at me or whatever, but I missed him. And I remember talking to him once. I was like, Dad, I saw him. I was like, Dad, why are you gone all the time? And I feel bad now because like, I feel like that's one of those moments where unintentionally the kid like makes your parent feel bad.
Right.
Because it's that moment where he's like, well, I'm doing this for you, but obviously because I was so young, I didn't understand. And I was just like, I don't see my dad and I want to see my dad.
Yeah. Now, curious, do you know how old your parents were when they were raising you?
My dad was 31 when I was born.
Okay.
And he's 6 years older than my mom.
Okay.
So, yeah. And I was the last one. Again, like my sister's 9 years older than me. My brother's 4 years older. So we had decent gaps between all of us.
The one thing that I hate the most about being a father is you're spending all this, especially me and Jess, right? We're spending all this quality time with Micah and Paige, but they're so young that they're never going to remember it.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a part of me that believes that what we're doing now will be deep rooted in them. They won't remember it, but
I think so.
Like
It builds into their character.
Builds into their character.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
And that's
like,
what I tell myself to make myself feel better. Anyway.
well, it's an unspoken thing. Like even
does.
looking back, think about how in those times that you know our parents got after us and might have spanked us, we don't remember what it was for, but the character building behind that is still with us.
yeah.
Like I know whatever it was, it worked. I know that it was necessary, and I don't have any ill feelings towards them for it. Like kids are crazy resilient. Like there's times when I've gotten so angry with like Kaylee And like, you know, I've yelled to the point of where like she goes to her room and 2 minutes after I'm like, gosh, like why did I do that? Like, and I go in and I like kind of same thing, like, hey, I'm sorry I overreacted, but like this is why, this is what happened. I shouldn't have gone as high as I did. But do you understand? You know, that kind of thing.
But you don't poke the bear.
But then, like, literally, the second we talk and stuff, and you let her out of her room, it's like it never happened.
Yeah.
Like they're so like, hey, Dad, love you. You know, it's like, you do? You still do?
Well, you got. I mean, you got to remember who like their best friends change on the daily,
True.
which is hilarious.
True.
But to go back, me growing up, my dad, we were living in the basement of a house. And my dad was going to college full time, managing his job full time. And I remember I would go with him to his study classes on the weekends so he could pass his exams to become an engineer. And so that right there was like me watching my dad do hard work. It was boring AF as a kid sitting there just like watching 5 nerds do calculus. But nerds. I'm like, okay, so this is what you got to do to, you know, be successful. And so that's kind of where I mirrored that. But I did hate that I didn't get as much time with my dad as I wanted. But I was lucky enough to at least have a stay-at-home mom who was always there. And so it's just kind of interesting to see the different work ethics versus the amount of time spent with the kid and just how you kind of portray that or think about that.
Seeing the work ethic thing too, my dad is, he'd always, this needs to come first before you do anything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I learned my work ethic as well from my father.
Yep.
But I made the distinct goal that when I had children, I wanted Lisa to have the choice to either stay home or go to work. That was a big thing for me that I worked very hard, that I was like, this is going to happen. And, I mean, she decided to stay home, which I'm very grateful for. Because my mom, so I get characteristics and things from my dad and like but I see the world through my mom's eyes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So my mom sees the good in everything. I mean, of course, everybody has their
She's
faults.
a saint.
She's a good woman. And so having that time, I don't care what anybody says. Like, people can care for your kids very well, but nobody, they don't feel that love unless they're with their mother. You know what I mean? A mother's love is a powerful thing.
I mean, when I think of my parents, I actually think of like a forge, like a blacksmith's forge. And I think of like the fire itself is life. You know, it's heating you up, it's making you malleable. And then your dad comes in, he's like, for lack of a better analogy, he's like the hammer. He's the shaping tools that helps shape your character, but you can't be polished up and finished without the love of your mother.
Yeah.
Kind of setting it in and like cleaning up those rough edges that your father might have left. Like she comes in nourishing and loving you and kind of like smoothing you out.
Yeah.
So now I'm gathering everyone here. We all come from extremely conservative households.
Oh, yeah.
Like all of our fathers
Bleed red.
worked, all of our mothers. I mean, I don't know about necessarily.
My mom worked.
Yeah, but so I had a stay-at-home mom.
Same.
Cam, same with Chris.
Yeah.
My mom worked.
Oh,
Your mom worked?
nice.
My mom worked full time all the time growing up.
Interesting.
We'll have to jump into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying my personal experience.
Well,
No
because
offense to
I was
anybody,
going to
but-
say, no. I mean, and that's another thing. There's no right answer to it. But
Yeah.
I do believe, and same as you, like, whether it's my wife or me, I want one of us in the home.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, everyone complains about this gender role stuff. I don't think it ever really mattered which person was home, but I feel like as a marriage, that's kind of the thing. It's like, if you're not out winning the bread, whether you're the mom or dad, it doesn't really matter. But if you're not the one doing that, I feel like it's good for the other one to be home and like helping on the home front, raising the kids, helping with that. Like, there's obviously different situations. And so people will have daycare, whatever, but same as you, I feel like I personally don't want my kids to be learning more from someone else than they are for me and my wife.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wish Lisa was a sugar mama.
I'd be so down for it, dude.
I'd be a stay-at-home
I'd be like,
dad.
have a great day, honey. I'll have dinner ready later.
Yeah.
I would be so for it.
I would do
I
it.
think for me, if I was a stay-at-home dad, my problem, like, this is where Jenny and I are different, but in a good way, is when Jenny was working. Luckily, we finally made the jump. I think it's been about a year and a half ago she was able to quit and be a stay-at-home mom. But beforehand, she was working nights. I would work days, and she'd usually work 4 to midnight, and I would work 8 to 6. And so for that 2-hour gap, my mom would come in and watch the kids and stuff. But for other than that, though, it was always Jenny in the morning, me at night. And Jenny, I don't want this to sound bad on her, but she wouldn't really
Tread
get
carefully.
She wouldn't
You're
get
going into dangerous territories, Tony.
It's a trap.
So this is what I'm talking about, though, as far as like this was the difference that was perfect, is she would focus all of her time on the kids, which was fantastic because that's what a stay-at-home mom is for. Where me, I would come home and I would focus on chores in the house. Like I could still get the kids ready for bed and different things, but I wasn't playing with them as much. I wasn't doing as much with the kids. Because I was just kind of coming home. I was getting dinner done, getting them ready for bed, that
You
type
open
of
the door
thing.
and it's creaky. I gotta fix that.
Dude, I'm such
But
a busy
What's
body.
this? What's this nail out of place? Where's the hammer?
See,
Like
but
every little thing.
I don't know. So now it's nice because with her not having to work, she can space out her projects and different things and get stuff done. And now that means vice versa. I can come home and actually have that time with the kids. And so
And when I made my decision for that too, I like analytically went through my head. Lisa's a very much so a more patient person than I am. And I just, dude, I'm a busybody too. I always have to be out doing something.
That's my biggest
it done.
vice as a parent is I feel so guilty because I will set out at the beginning of the day, pretty much every day. I'll be like, okay, today I'm going to spend a good amount of time with Micah one-on-one, and then I'm going to do the same thing for Paige and just really enjoy their age and where they're at in life. And then the day just escapes me. I've got a million things running around in my head, and I'm constantly running around doing other things and getting things done. And that's great, but I hate that I can't almost like live in the moment. Like I can't enjoy, because even when I'm sitting there and I'm paying attention to my daughters, in the back
You're
of my
thinking
head,
about
I'm
stuff
like,
that needs to get done.
crap, okay, I need to go do this. I need to go do this. And I can't really relish that moment. And so
You're
that's
not all the way there.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it makes me so mad, man.
see, for me, I'm not as much of a busybody like that. I can definitely slow my head down. My problem is I build up these expectations. Like, oh my gosh, we're going to have this family day. We're going to get out. This is what it's going to be like. And it's going to be a gay old time. And
Like
And
happy?
No, not at all.
But then, real life happens. It's not like in the movies. Your kids are throwing tantrums, this and that. And yeah, like I get so mad. But then you stop and you think back and you're like, no, that was still a good day. Like it really was. You don't focus on the bad. And I don't know. But then once again, then our kids are in, I don't know, we're really like having to point out the things that they are privileged for, I guess you could say. Like earlier, or I think it was,
Dad, fix the Wi-Fi. You're lucky you even have it. Oh, wait.
We're going to the library.
no, like we let the kids slough school one day to take them to the zoo. And
The shame.
And then like a couple days later, they're just like, we never get to do anything fun. We're like, what? It's like, we literally let you stay home from school so we could go to the zoo.
I broke the law for you.
I don't know. It's just little things like that it's like we have these great fun family days. Then the kids will turn around and seem ungrateful for it. And then once again, you have to stop and be like, hey, they will remember this though.
Yeah.
And they will come back to it and they'll be grateful later.
It's like your Disneyland story. Like nothing takes the wind out of your sails as a parent more than when your kid isn't like crazy excited about your surprise.
Right.
Literally, like I'll come home and I'm like, oh, I got this little surprise. Kaylee's gonna love it. And I'm like, hey, look what I got for you. And she's like, why didn't you get the other one? I'm like, you get nothing.
See, my thing with that too is I love surprises. I love surprises.
Me too.
I love receiving them and I love giving them.
Yup.
And my kids are definitely not surprise kids.
Yeah.
You don't
just-
say. Bryn.
I was gonna say we have a picture to prove a Bryn's surprise
The
face.
look of surprise on her
Yeah.
face.
Pretty much, here's what it is. Parenting is the ultimate improv. A lot of it.
Oh yeah.
You gotta just on the fly.
There's no book on this.
No, there's a lot of books.
There's
but
a
I feel
lot
like
of
they're all
books.
wrong.
I'd burn them.
Burn them all.
But you can get a good base, but a lot of it's improv. Because every kid's different too.
Yeah.
Every kid's completely
Well,
different.
they're into so many weird. Well, the thing I noticed that's funny about kids is where do they pick some of these things up? Like literally, some of the things they just like. You're like, no one in this family enjoys that. Why do you like it? Like, where did it come from?
That's exactly why, though. It's the exact
It's
opposite.
so
So
weird.
it's cool.
But I think, like, to your point, Tony, like, at the end of the day, you'll look back and you will only remember the good stuff. The bad stuff is so easily forgettable unless it's like, well, the bad. But I mean, most of the time you look back and you're like, I don't remember anything bad happening that day. And they don't either. Like, they had, like, Kaylee, when we took her to Disneyland, she was so scared of most of the rides. She cried through Pirates of the Caribbean. She cried in the line to Star Wars. Because like some animatronic scared her. Like the most silly things. She cried on the Alice in Wonderland, terrified her. But then again, both her and my nephew and my mom took him. And she's like, why did I bring them on this? This is messed up. But she looks back now and she's like, that was like the greatest vacation of my life. I was like, you were crying like 90% of the time.
See, my kids with Disneyland, when can we go to Disneyland again? It's like, oh, now you want to go to Disneyland.
It's like, yeah, you hated it.
We're going to the Great Salt Lake Beach. Is what we're going.
See, where does the beach start and end though? Like it's just
Brine.
Just sand.
It's all brine. Brine everything.
See, I think one thing as a parent that is sometimes hard to swallow is when you have to be like, oh, my parents were right. Like,
yeah.
like, I had an example. Dang it. No, I forgot.
You had an epiphany just the other day.
Yes.
Dude, I always find it's the same thing. Like I said, like this hurts you more than it hurts me. Like figuring out that he was right. You're like, oh dang, because then I actually feel bad for all the stuff I did. Because I'm like, oh man, like I put you through some rough times, man.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
one thing. This isn't what I was going to say, but one thing that kind of drives me nuts is, so my mom can butt in on our parenting pretty dang bad sometimes. We'll have to always, every so often, come back around to telling her, okay, back off a little bit. We got this. And it's hard because I know where she's coming from as far as like me now with my kids at the age that they're at. It's like, well, I'm the parent. I know more than you. I know better. So this is why you shouldn't be doing it. My mom now is still doing that to me, her child, because she's raised me. She's been there. She knows better. And so she's trying to tell me, I've been through this. I know, so don't do that. But me being a parent, it's like, well, I want to make those my own choices. This is me parenting my kids now. Let me make the mistake and we'll see where it goes. And so it's like a double-edged sword. It's like, I get where she's coming from. I appreciate her advice, but it's like in the end, it's up to me if I want to take that advice. And oh man, yeah.
My parents still parent me in a way of not like that, but in the way of I'll come to my mom with the problem. I'll be like, okay, this is what's going on. What'd you do? She's like, Chris, you are a smart man. She goes, it's weird to say it, but you're a man.
What a saint.
I thought she was going to say, it's weird to say, but you're smart.
No, she's like, she's just like, you are a smart young, or she says, you're a smart young man. She goes, you know what to do. Like, and they just take a step back and they know
it's that pushing you out of the nest. You know,
No,
they're
that's not
just
my mom.
furthering it.
See, that's my. I love that my parents do that.
Dude,
But-
same. My parents are the same.
And my dad even had a talk because me and my dad butted heads. There's a lot of things I disagreed with. Like I said, he had a long talk with me, and I could tell that he thought about it all, and he apologized for a lot of it we had. And that's when me and my dad had that moment. I was like,
Dude, like
Yeah.
I said, like when my dad posted that bill throughout the house, like we had been butting heads quite a bit. And then as soon as I finally moved out of the house, we became like best friends.
Yeah.
Like, and it's funny because now out of everyone in my family, I'm like the only one that can truly like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like pacify or like calm down my dad. Like if he actually gets mad, I can now just make fun of him with him, and he doesn't get mad at me anymore. It's one of the coolest
switch
things. Like it's one of the
changes.
best
Yeah.
relationships ever.
Yeah.
Like I love my dad so much, and it's so fun because now we're just buddies.
see, with my dad, it was just like the circle of respect was finally linked together
Yeah.
with my dad when we had that talk. And I know he'd been searching for that the whole time I was trying to grow up. And then that's what it took, you know? And I mean, of course, I'm stubborn too, but I've learned to get over that. But
We all are.
See,
yeah,
for me,
it was
sadly,
awesome.
sadly, I almost feel like the divorce brought me and my dad closer because I would go and spend the weekends with him.
Competition.
Just
kidding.
Well, he
Two
was almost
Christmases.
yeah. No, it was like he was like practically. I mean, he was the iconic Disneyland dad. After the divorce, he was trying to buy our love and stuff and
Nice.
different things like that. It drove my mom nuts because on the weekends I'd go and stay with him. We would do fun things, whatever it may be. And then when I'd come back, none of my homework was done. Nothing happened. So now Sunday night, I'm trying to scrape to get everything done. And I'm back home with my mom. So now she's the one that has to deal with all that crap. And it's one of those things where, again, back then, 10 years old, I don't know. I'm just having fun with dad and stuff. And I think now as an adult, now I look back and I wish my dad had more assertiveness. Like I wish he parented me more. And but with that, I have 10 times more respect for my mom. And so, like I hear your stories about your dad's getting down on, you know, and it's like, I almost wish I had that. Like I said, there was that one time I remember my dad getting really mad and spanking me. But other than that, to be completely honest, up to 10 years old with my dad living at home, I don't remember much. Like I remember memories that were told to me, if that makes sense, but I don't remember them myself.
I mean, did you just get disciplined like real hard one time?
Here's what
Right down the stairs?
I don't remember anything
Here's what I
before
wanna-
10.
Here's what I want to say to you, Tony, about that. I'm glad it didn't happen to you because you are a stand-up guy.
Yeah,
and you turned out awesome.
That's
as a
the thing.
human being.
Like I look at this room of this group of men, and I honestly think that our parents, faults and successes they had, like did phenomenally well.
Yeah.
Like especially comparing, because growing up, you start to see other people's families, and you're like, oh wow, like. I thought I had like my dad got mad at me because I was late one night, and I thought my family sucked, and I'm like, but then I see this over here, and it's just a train wreck. Like
Yeah.
some kid's got a black eye, and you're like, holy crap!
You think
like,
the grass
wow.
is greener and it's a swamp
yeah.
on the other
Oh,
end of
yeah.
the fence. You know what I mean?
Just moss covering a lake of a
Yeah.
puddle of mud.
What were you, Zach? You had something to say before that. You were gonna make a comment right before Tony.
He was itching his lip.
I was gonna say I didn't have any comment.
You did too. I heard you.
Well, make a
okay.
comment.
Well, anyways, I do have a question for you. Going back to your dad being a policeman, did he like? Do you think that had an effect on how he parented you? Like, did he try to bring in like some of that police training, like, and use it in a way for his family, or did he kind of push it away to where when he was at home he wasn't a policeman in any way?
Trying
Do
to
you know
be
what I mean?
polar opposite of it.
At first, yes. It's hard to say. At first, he brought a lot of work home. Wasn't that he tried to, like
He brought the criminals home.
I was like,
Well,
we're talking
yes.
about files.
Just like his attitude and
Yeah.
demeanor.
Oh.
Yeah, he brought his attitude and his demeanor home, and it showed.
Yeah.
I feel like that'd be hard to shut off.
And it is. It's a fine line to shut off and to where you're going to go. But he never got on us for weird things. I mean, but that was also the hard thing too. We could never lie to him. He knew when we were lying. Immediately.
He's a cop, man.
He hooked him up to a lie detector test. He's like, "Oh, really?"
Every time. I'm taking you to the room.
I knew there was one time my brother came home and he had a brand new pair of Lucky jeans.
Oh,
And
lucky
Luckies,
him.
they're not really around anymore.
They're not cheap.
but
They
weren't cheap.
are, but
Yeah.
I think everyone's over bedazzled jeans
Yes.
at this point.
And anyways, my dad was like, "Where'd you get those from?" He goes, "Oh, I got them from a friend at school." And he goes, "Well, really? Where'd you get them from?" He goes, "No, really. I bought them for like $20 off of a friend." What's his friend's name? And he
What's his friend's name?
Investigation.
that's basically what came to find out. My dad's like, "Okay, come to find out that my brother bought it off my friend or off of his friend, but his friend stole like 10 pairs of these jeans from wherever and then was hawking them off at high school to these kids for like $20-$30. And my dad was like, no, we're done. We're taking these back.
I'm gonna go bust up this jean ring.
Into the investigation chamber. Pulls down the light over him. Where were you?
It's just a swinging light in a dark room.
So, I mean,
It's in the kitchen. Mom comes in, flips the light on. Oh, sorry. Investigation time.
That reminds me of a story with my dad, or it was my mom actually. The only thing I stole when I was a little kid, I stole a pack of gum, and I remember getting to the car and I'm all in the background. I was like, "Where'd you get that gum?" And I was just like, "I got it from in the store." She's like, "Okay." She grabbed me by the ear, took me into the store. I had to go take it back, pay for it, and apologize for stealing it. And that sunk deep in my soul, and I have never even thought about anything like that ever again in my life.
Teaching moment.
Just that, it was a definite teaching moment. I'm sure the lady was like, it happens, you know what I mean? But to me, I was just like so embarrassed, mortified that I'd done that.
Well, that's the whole point.
Yeah, it worked.
How many of those teaching moments do you think go by on a daily basis that you don't realize it's a teaching moment until it's too late?
Like, what do you mean?
With
Like
my
that we
kids?
received or that we...
No, that we
As
give.
fathers to children, like how many, like something that you just brush off, like, okay, don't do that again. And you just brush it off and it's done. When now, flash forward 10 years from now, you look back going, oh, I really should have focused.
Well, and that's the hard thing. It's like I said before, like a lot of times we took things as teaching moments that they didn't intend as teaching moments. And so I feel the same thing. Like it's constant. They're always watching. You don't know what part they're going to keep and what they're going to discard.
You know, with that, I read a meme one time and it was about having daughters and, it was something along the lines of like, as a father, you don't, I can't remember. Basically, like as a father, you should show your daughter in action the type of man she should marry. And so like,
Was it show like basically
Be the man that you want your child.
Well, more so be the husband to their mother the way that they should be treated.
Exactly.
right. And so it's like Jenny and I, we're very affectionate and stuff, even around the kids, as far as we hug, we kiss, stuff like that. And it's funny, the kids get grossed out now and stuff, but it's like when they grow old enough to understand that and see that love, I'm hoping it's that subconscious memory where it's like mom and dad loved each other. That's what I want, you know? And so
I feel like a
don't
lot
know.
of it comes out as a feeling. Like it's just something you feel is right. Like even though you can't put words to it, but the way your parents were, you feel, you know, the feeling of it being right.
A prompting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See, and that's like, again, it's like using my dad as an opposite example because obviously he cheated on my mom and stuff. And so once again, it was like what not to do. But, and that actually brings up a question because all of your parents are like, they are your parents as far as no step parents or anything, right?
Yeah.
Have any of them gotten close to divorce that you witnessed?
I wouldn't know it.
I don't think so at all. But again, yeah, if it did, there was no way they showed any signs to us. But I don't think so.
There was a stint where my parents went through a really bad hardship, but I don't know if that was ever on the table, if that makes sense. Like it was
Because I was just curious,
tense.
like witnessing it from a child's point of view. If you saw him get close and then fix it, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I was just
I mean,
curious.
I feel, at least the way I always grew up, is that I've never even heard the word divorce in my family.
Yeah, same.
Talking about my family.
Yeah.
At all. Like I feel like my parents definitely went into it and were like, this will never be an option. We're always going to be working together to do the best we can. And so, yeah. So like, that's how I grew up. Like, that's how I feel is divorce isn't an option.
Yeah. See, it was funny for me. Like, I remember very vividly walking down the stairs, my mom sitting at the kitchen counter. She just hung up the phone. She was just crying, and she just straight up told me, your father and I are getting a divorce. And like, I didn't fully understand what divorce meant, but I just knew it meant they were not going to be together anymore. And I just turned right back around, ran upstairs and cried. But yeah, I don't know.
So to kind of pivot this, is there anything growing up that you wished your parents would have done different?
Let me get my list out.
Well, I think going back on what Chris said, it's hard because, like, yes, if I really thought about it, there's probably a handful of things here and there. But like Chris said, it's like we wouldn't be who we are today.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if you were to ask me that question 13 years ago or more, I probably could have had like a few things. But now that I'm old enough and past the point to where I can look back and see why they did those things, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
What I want to know is what my parents would do different. Like,
Yeah, that'd be
if
interesting.
you were to
That's a
ask the
good
same
one.
question to them.
That would be interesting because I just remember growing up, I absolutely hated. I was in high school and I was one of the only friends of mine, or I was like the only person out of my group of friends that had a midnight curfew. So it was like, I was always the inconvenience. It was like, oh, I got to take Austin home.
Austin has to go home now.
Great.
Austin, you drove great. We all have to go home now.
Mine was 9.
9
9
really?
o'clock on
Even
the
through
weekends.
high school?
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, I didn't even.
Really?
Yeah.
I remember I slept. I would sleep in my van in random places,
Oh, that's so sketch.
and I would just be like, "Hey, I mean, this was what 2005, bro. It was a different
That's
world.
still so sketch.
Different world." But I would like call my mom and be like, "I'm staying at this kid's house," and she'd be like, "Okay," and that was
See,
it.
That's
my house was the hangout spot. Like, I remember the friends I hung out with most, they would always tell their moms, I'm sleeping over at Tony's house. And then we would go out and be out all night because then their moms would think they were at my house. My mom didn't care where we were at. And so, yeah.
I can attest to that. Yep. I remember falling asleep on your beanbag many times.
So that was a comfy beanbag.
That was.
if I could change one thing, it would be that I wish that my parents would have loosened up the leash and let me prove that I was a good person, because they didn't. They had so many
Yeah,
rules.
give you.
But how many kids were in your family?
8.
See, and a family
You're like
that
number
large,
5 or 6.
he had to do the
5.
math. So
4.
in a
I'm 4.
family, in a family that large, I
Carry the
almost feel
2.
like you need extreme structure in order for like
It
for
to function.
anyone to survive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like it's a parameter that's almost required because that otherwise it's just utter chaos.
well, because the older child ends up, and I'm betting it was like this, but I don't know for sure. The older child ends up being like another parent.
No.
Did that happen in your
No.
family? My sister definitely tried to be like another mom to me. Drove me absolutely insane as a child.
My brothers were bullies.
Really?
Oh, big time.
Butts.
Yeah. But I wish they would have, because honestly, I did some things and I didn't do anything bad, but I would just not come home on time just because I was like, I get in trouble anyway. So I just wouldn't do
Yeah,
it.
no, I get that.
I wouldn't. And yeah, that's on me. I should be listening to my parents, but I was just like, they don't give me, there's no leniency on it at all.
It's like you kind of wish they would let you make the mistake and then get the lecture instead of them stopping you from making the mistake and still giving you the
See,
lecture.
and I am such a fan of that. Like I am a big fan of I'm gonna let you learn,
Yeah, and then let's
figure it
discuss
out,
it.
and then I will deal with
It
what
reminds
happens.
me, do you guys know Christopher Titus, the
Yeah,
comedian?
I love
Yeah.
Titus, dude.
He does. He has this one bit. I can't remember it exactly, but he's talking about being a parent and watching his kid about to stick the fork in the light socket. And he's like, hey, wait. Let's see where this goes.
Let's see how this plays out.
Yeah, let's see how this plays out. Yeah, told you not to do that. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan. I'm a big advocate for that because me personally, I am such an independent person and I want to learn and do things my own way. I don't want to be told how to do something. I just want to figure it out. And so if I see Micah trending down that path, same with Paige, I'm going to be all for it.
It's independent thinking.
I will be watching her with the biggest smile on my face, no matter what happens. That's going to be a learning moment.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Now,
like-
is Jess on the same page?
I don't know, but when she's not around, that's how it's going to play out.
Critical thinking. It teaches critical thinking.
Yeah.
And I do that with Alden unless it's something that I can see leading to something that's going to go.
something that'll hurt him.
Yeah, that's going to be a bad thing. But
Yeah.
I, for the most part, I let him do it. But the biggest lesson I learned is that mom and dad got to be on a unified front when it comes to.
Oh yeah.
See, yeah, with that, Jenny and I, we made the agreement back before we even had kids. We said, okay, when we do have kids, even if we are in a disagreement, we can't let the kids see that. In the eyes of the children, mom and dad are a team.
Yeah.
We never want to fight in front of them.
Yeah.
And there's been times when, like, she'll be getting after him for something that maybe I wouldn't have been as upset about, but I let her do her thing. And then afterwards, after they've left the room, then Jenny and I will have our discussion.
That's
go
how
to
me
the
and Shaylee
analytic
are.
room?
Yeah. Well, then, and like Shaylee, same thing. Like Shaylee might be like, you went a little too hot on that one. You're like, dang it, I know you're right. Like,
Yeah.
So on the flip side of that, is there anything you want to do different to your kids in a parenting fashion than your parents did to you? I'm curious.
I honestly want to mimic what my parents did. Like, again, looking back and this is something just interesting about me. I've always been very self-analytical. Like, and I find that a lot of people aren't actually that way, but like I will make a mistake and then immediately think about it and be like, oh, why did I do that? I could have done it this way. Like, there were multiple times growing up in my teenage years. I remember this one time I was out in the backyard with a BB gun in the winter and I was just shooting icicles and I shot one off the deck, not noticing that the freaking glass door was behind it and that the icicle turned out to be snow with ice on it. And the BB went straight through and just shattered the window. And I stood there like frozen. And I just waited because I knew somehow my dad would, you know what I mean? Like, your parents somehow just know these things.
Oh yeah.
Like when your mom's
they
like,
pop
where'd you
out
get
of the
gun?
ground like a gopher.
Like I will, like, Kaylee will be playing and doing some random stuff that I'm not even paying attention to. But the second something happens, you're just like, where'd you get that? Like, out of nowhere. It's like this, the Peter tingle, you know? But anyways, so I shoot this glass door.
I hope you guys understand that reference. Otherwise, that went real dark real quick.
So I shoot out this door and it didn't fall. It stayed together, but like shattered. And I'm just sitting there and I all of a sudden hear, it sounded like my dad was running through the house, gets to the kitchen, sees
Sounds
the
like a
door.
giant
He was so mad. He threw the door open, which made it fall. It was a 2-pane though, so one was still good, but it made the other one just fall down. And he, like, I saw him. You know how you know your dad's like his movements? I see him make the dad, like the mad dad stance, and he does like the breath, the inhale. He's like here it comes. I see the hand coming up. And I just look at him and go, I'm grounded for a week, no TV, or no car, or whatever. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, sorry, sir. I'm sorry. And I like straight up just punished myself before he could even say anything.
Just not the belt. Just not the belt.
I was like, do nothing. And it was just so funny to me.
You should have hurried and like spread some stuff on your face and be like, I ran into the door.
Would have been like, cover my eye. Like, I shot my eye. I shot my eye.
Yeah.
But I just remember a couple times I would punish myself knowing that he was going to get mad because I felt like it either the humor of it or just the fact that I did it for him made him not punish me worse, I guess you could say.
See, I just want to be able to, I mean, I'm repeating what I said earlier. I just want to be able to punish my kids in a way that they know they did something wrong, but they also know that they can come to me.
That is such a fine line to walk, but I think
it
that's
really
like
is.
I think that's the ultimate goal for any parent,
Right.
But man, it's a
'Cause
hard line to find.
All
It's
kids
so
are going to
hard.
make mistakes. Like as a parent, you know that, but it's, I don't know. I don't want them to lie to me, and I want them to be able to come to me with any problem that they're having, even if they know that problem is going to get them in trouble.
Yeah. And here's where I just don't know yet because I'm not that far into fatherhood, but it's so weird. Before we had Micah, we had 2 dogs, Stella and Maple, and it was so interesting to me just as a dog parent how the dogs would interact to punishment differently. Like Stella, if you spanked her and like told her no, like she did something really bad, and that was like you broke her heart. Like it was you, and you just felt terrible afterward, and you know. And then for Maple, it was like, gosh, she would not listen until you gave her bum a spank, and then it was like, oh, yep, what do you need? I'm listening now. And so it's that I mean, going along on that fine line where you want to find that perfect balance, but each kid, I would imagine,
Is going
to be different in the lines of like punishment and, you know, teaching.
Yeah,
And
you have
so-
to find their code,
And
their
then
secret code.
and then not only that, but then you need to be able to justify that to the other kids too, because they're going to see it as like, well, you're not being fair to
What did
me.
he do? I
You
mean,
did, you know, they did
Being
that.
the youngest, I got everything. So
You know, so that's the like Rubik's cube in my eyes of what's to come for me in trying to find that balance in itself.
Yeah. I just don't ever want my son to not be able to talk to me because he's scared of me.
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
want it to ever be that he's acting the way he should because he's scared of the consequences of what I'm going to do. I want it to be a respect thing, and I want it to be to where he realizes that I should do this because it's the right thing, not because dad's scary. You know what I mean? And with me, with my dad, it was everything was out of fear, and I don't ever want that to be with my son. And it's just a balance act. It's so hard.
Oh, yeah. Because you need, like you want to make an impression as to like what they did is either unacceptable or it's not something they should be doing.
Yeah.
But you don't want to damage them in any way or damage your relationship with them.
It needs to be an attention getter, not out of fear, you know?
Well, and that's why every time like we punish Kaylee, we always have a conversation with her and ask her like, now why did that happen? Like, why did you get punished?
And then there I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know is one of the most infuriating phrases from a child.
I'm not there yet, and I'm nervous for that day.
For me, it's where they just stare at you either
No
blankly,
emotion.
just blankly, or with that attitude like they could care less.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like sometimes I get down on one knee, so I'm down eye level with them. I talk in a very calm voice, and it's like, okay, we know not to do that, right? Yeah, whatever. Oh my gosh!
With Alden,
Back to my feet.
Out the window.
with Alden, there'll always be an explanation to why things are happening the way they're happening.
Yeah.
So, but with that too, sometimes it's just still got toddler brain or kid brain. They just
Yeah.
can't fully comprehend the complex situation that they're in.
Yeah.
And it's
They don't see the
repetition.
big picture.
No,
Exactly.
same thing. And that's honestly like one of the things I'm working on with myself is trying to not let that get to me to where I'm being ridiculous. Like, like you'll be like, you know what? This was bad. No phone for the rest of the day. And she's like, okay. Or TV. All right. You're gonna lay
I'll
in
take your
bed.
TV and I'll raise you.
You're not gonna leave your bed for the whole day.
Taking
Okay.
away her phone is
You're cutting the grass with scissors.
taking the phone away is giving her your childhood. Do you realize that? That's
Yeah.
like your normal childhood.
Oh, I know.
Isn't
That's
that
why.
weird to
That's why
think
it's always
about?
the first. I always go first to the electronics
Yeah.
because either way, like at least, like I just want her to
That's it, kid. You have
to
a
play
normal
with
childhood.
toys. Yeah, do something else. Use your imagination.
We've had this conversation is for me, it's like I throw out punishments like I could.
Like freaking Mardi Gras beads.
Right, exactly. I have to if that's one thing I want to work on is I don't want to just throw out punishments just willy-nilly.
Because they get crazier the longer you go.
Really do. But also too, because my kids are already starting to call my bluff. Like they figured it out. Mm-hmm. And so it's like I have to start subtle with punishments I know I can stick to.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing is you need to be able to lay down, like follow through with what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to go back to the stick your nose in the corner for 9 minutes.
You say what you mean and you mean what you say. That's the biggest thing.
Because some of the punishments punish you. It's like,
Oh, yeah. Let's
Okay.
take you away the
Parenting.
phone because then they get in your
Right.
face.
That's part of being a parent, though.
Dad, play with me. No, this isn't what I wanted.
I go,
I don't want to be a parent.
I don't want to give you attention.
I'm busy with something else.
9 times out of 10, I go into timeout with Alden, and I'm just like, it sucks, doesn't it, buddy? You know?
Yeah, because I'm here with you, Dad.
Yeah. Well, here's what I've learned, though. I've learned this, and I've thought this, but then I started reading about it. If you send a kid to timeout, their mind immediately goes not into regret for what they did, but like anger that they're in timeout. But if you go in there with them with a loving attitude about it, like this is the consequence of what happened because of this and this, and you're explaining it to them, that timeout becomes constructive instead of them wanting vengeance or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, and I read something recently talking about timeout. And they have the opposite of this. And this is something, it's so simple, but I've never heard of it. There's also time in. Have you heard of this?
Get on the table and dance, boy. 5 minutes. Do a jig.
That's called exercise.
So time in is basically you're showing the contrast between time out, which is the punishment, and time in is the
reward?
reassurance of yeah. So like, for example, specifically I was talking about toddlers, but like if they bring you a book, you read the book with them. If they bring you a toy, you play the toy with them. Like that's showing them this is what you want. Like this is the good thing. But if you do this, you're going in timeout. So you now don't get to have fun. You don't get to play with the toys. So they can contrast it and say, well, I prefer to have time in. I want to hang out. I want to play.
See, I've heard of something similar to, it is some people punish by reward. So instead of punishing for the negative, they reward for the positive.
Yeah.
So
I feel like
that was a good one.
I feel like that's. See, I don't know.
That's a little too new age for me.
That
This
almost
free-range
scares
parenting.
me.
Yeah.
That almost scares me in the fact that it's almost like I feel like that would enable entitlement.
I agree.
Exactly.
not so much reward, like it's like, oh, congratulations, you picked up your plate after dinner. Here's a toy.
It's like the punishment
it's more
is that
just
they
praise.
don't, or they're not.
It's just
they're not
praise.
getting the
like,
praise.
Like, good job, you read the book, or blah blah blah, whatever. And
That's yin and
instead of
yang.
like, I don't know.
Where they get
No,
punished.
it's just positive reinforcement.
Yeah, you want to give them attention for when they're doing things right, not just the attention when they're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Because then they always feel like they're doing something wrong.
Yeah. So Zach, is there anything that your parents did that you'd like to not do?
You have the most experience out of all of us, don't you? You've got
No.
got 3 kids.
He's just sitting over there, rookies.
He's got a 10-year-old.
Isn't Katie 10?
Yeah.
Oh, Katie's 10?
Yeah.
Oh, JK.
She's
Go ahead.
Yeah, a little bit older than Brent.
Like
I think. I mean,
He's just
if
over here.
if
You
we were
guys
like,
got to raise 3 gingers and then tell me how to parent.
He's all, this is
trying
amateur
to
hour
banish
over
these
here.
unwanted souls that keep bringing home.
I don't know. I think the biggest thing that I've tried to do with my kids that my parents did is that my parents didn't do, is I've tried to make my kids do things for themselves. So, what you doing?
You're all fuzzy.
Sorry, I was looking at the mic. the recorder. We're good.
No. So this will explain a lot about me. You guys give me such a hard time for being a pushover. I will tell you where it came from. And when I was growing up, my brothers, I had to do everything for them. If I didn't, I got punished for it.
By your brothers?
You're talking
Yes.
swirlies, noogies, wedgies.
To the point where, so my dogs lived in the garage. We had boxers growing up. They lived in the garage. I was forced to lick the garage floor.
What?
And my parents thought it was funny. And they would
What?
not, yes. So I learned at a very young age to just say, okay, I will go do it. There was one time I remember distinctly, I was downstairs watching the movie, and my brother, he had called me upstairs, and I was like, okay. Went up there, I was like, what do you want? And he goes, I need something out of the fridge. Will you go get it for me? And I was like, ugh. So I go get it, and I go downstairs, and then my other brother, hey, can you come up here? So I go, hey, I need something out of the fridge. Literally, they did it 2 or 3 times. Finally, I stopped going up there, and my mom called me up. Hey, I need something out of the fridge. And I was like, you guys are being jackasses. But that is the one thing that I'm trying to move to my kids. I've had, hey, for instance, Rose, she'll say, hey, Katie, go do this for me. And I'm like, no, Rose, you go do it yourself. And it's the same thing like, Katie, hey, I'm doing this. Rosie, you go do it. And I'm like, no, you go do it yourself. So that's the one thing I'm trying to enable, because that was the one thing. That's why I am the way I am. Unfortunately, it's one of those things where, that's why I'm always so agreeing with everybody. It's just because I got punished for it when I tried to do something else. I was beat up for it.
So, question with that:
I got my butt kicked.
Do your brothers, now being adults and stuff and having families of your own, do they recognize how they treated you, and do they feel bad for it? Have they ever apologized or anything?
Heavens, no.
They probably don't even realize what they did.
Yeah, they probably don't even realize what they did.
Wants to beat them up.
Because my sister, like I said, she was 8 years older than me, and I was always a little pipsqueak, and so she could easily pick on me and stuff. And like now flash forward till now, she looks back at that and she regrets it. She hated the way she treated me. Me and her didn't become the friends we are until our adult lives.
That takes a lot to step back and realize things
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, it does.
Well, I think with that now throwing the parenting into it that's what I want for my I've like when I hear about siblings, Jenny came from kind of a big family and stuff, and like I said, I just have the one older sister, so I don't know all that well, but I just want my kids to stay friends. Not only when they mature and everything, they're going to get that knowledge and appreciate each other more. But I want them to stay friends growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like my sister used me as a doll for the first year, 2
That
of my
explains
life.
a lot.
Those Saturdays. That's
why you don't like those mannequins, huh?
stupid dolls. But no, she was and I was pretty close to her because until my brother was in high school, I was his annoying kid brother. So we would have fun, but if he was in front of his friends, I wasn't cool or anything, But the thing I always did look up to my brother for is that even if he would push me away, didn't want to be around me because I was his annoying little brother, not cool in front of his friends, if his friends did anything to pick on me, he would always defend me. He always had my back. So it's interesting because I was still close to my sister because my brother didn't want to hang out as much, but they always had my back even though we would disagree. I'd butt heads with my sister all the time because she tried to be a second mother, and to the point of telling on me all the time. If I did anything, she'd be like, "Mom, Cam's doing this." I'd be like, "Shut your dirty mouth." But they always, at the end of the day, they always had my back. If someone else, it's the thing you see in movies all the time. If they go and pick on you, and you're like, "Ho, hey, I was just doing it, but you can't do it."
That's the way it was with us.
Yep.
We would have bloody battles because I didn't want to do what my older brothers would tell. We'd have bloody battles. And then we'd do a pack of silence to where we wouldn't tell our parents and try to hide the wounds because we just fought.
You always hit below the shirt. It's got to be in the shirt area so the wounds can't be seen.
That was one thing that was instilled is we were just all independent, and unless there was a good reason because I think my dad would make us do things and he never explained why. So with each other, it'd be like, why? Because I said so? I don't think so.
Dude, I think that's one thing, now that you say that, is that I try not to do. I have said it. I have for sure said that phrase. Why? Because I said so.
I've said it.
And it's because it's in the silliest moment. You don't really have an explanation. It's more you were just asking them to do something for you, and they're just like, why? And you're like, it doesn't matter. Just do it. But I want to be able to give a reason. Be more open with, well, this is why. I want this to happen.
Almost have an explanation for every little thing, no matter how minuscule it seems.
Yeah. I mean, even at that, like the humility, again, going back to being humble, even with your children, saying, I just need your help with this.
I've had so many deep conversations where I have to keep explaining why and why and why because I told him I'd never say because I said so. Son, you need to clean up your toys. Why? Because it's your responsibility to clean up after yourself when you're done with something. Why? Well, what happens if we have a fire in the middle of the night and I go to get you out of your room and I step on your Legos and I die and you burn in your bed?
That's exactly what happens. Again, like you go to these fantastical places because you're just tired of the conversation.
But it goes from because it's your responsibility and it's better to be tidy than it is to be messy. And it turns
If
into
there's a
this
crumb
whole-
on the floor, then there's going to be a horde of cockroaches that come into this room and they're going to carry you away in the night.
Oh, dude, I had that conversation with him the other night. I was like, dude, make sure you're eating over your plate so you don't get crumbs everywhere. Why? Because it's a mess and it'll get pushed into the flooring and it's just harder to clean up later. Why? Because winter's coming and you don't want to find a mouse on your
Winter's
chest in
coming.
the middle of the night, do you? Like,
With a bucket over it and a candle on top.
Then we're getting into psychological
I don't really.
parenting.
And then-
the whole other side of the spectrum.
I'm saying this, and it wasn't exactly like that. Of course, I'm dramatizing it, but I will say stuff like if there was an emergency or something and there's toys all over, it'd be hard to get out of the situation.
Well, and have you guys ever had something like that backfire on you where like, I don't know, like do this or the spiders are going to come and eat you or something like that. And then like weeks down the road, and this is just an example. I've never used that exact phrase, but like, and then later you find out that they're like actually afraid of that thing. And you're like, oh crap. I didn't mean for you to actually be scared. It was just in that moment.
Not me personally.
You'll get there.
I'm sure.
See, the other thing too with me, kind of just on the fears and stuff a little bit is how much of it is taught and how much of it is inherited. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, especially Brinley right now, she gets anxiety over things that a little 10-year-old shouldn't. Like if Jenny, like we'll drop them off at like my mom's house. Jenny and I will go out on a short little date or do something. And it doesn't happen every time, but sometimes we'll come back and she comes up and gives us the biggest hug. She's like, I'm so glad you guys are safe. I just started wondering, what if you guys got in a car accident and blah, blah. And it's like, you got to chill out. Like your little brain should not be like having thoughts like that.
YouTube, man, or something. I think a lot of it's movies and stuff they watch.
Yeah.
But see, and that's just it too, is like some of them, like she's been into like Lord of the Rings, things like that, which definitely have its fight scenes and different things like that, but it's fantasy. And so for her to pull it into like real life, I don't know.
My niece was terrified of Gollum for the longest time. Like actually, like it scared her so bad. She would see him in
and
nightmares
stuff like that would make sense, but she has legitimate fears.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Well, she's smart because maybe she's like goblins aren't real.
Yeah.
Car wrecks are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
She understands reality versus.
Wait, he fell off a horse
Fantasy.
and he almost died. What happens if the car crashes?
Superman Superman lost his legs from a horse.
But this is definitely a large topic that we could go on for hours about. Like, I still feel like I have a whole lot more, but definitely something we can revisit. We could kind of pull in some more specific topics about growing up, about family, all that good stuff. But this has been good. It's cool to hear your guys' experiences, both as a child and like as a father. But we're gonna put a pin in it for now, and thank you guys for joining us at another
thank you.
Five's a Crowd and joining us with this fun little topic of fatherhood. We hope you guys come next week.
Back.
Come on back now.
Yeah.
We'll be back here same time every week.
Same place.
Same bat channel.
All the time. All the platforms, even the YouTubes.
Even the YouTubes if you enjoy video.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.
Thanks for being part of this crowd.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.